This is the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast, with Kreese, Mino, and Mark, bringing you all your Devo news and talk. Welcome to Season 4, the LDBT era. Now let's start the show.
Welcome everyone to episode 114 of the Crystal Chronicles, recorded this Thursday, August 13th, 2020. I am Mark, your host, and I am so glad to be here with you, especially as we, at least in the first time that I remember in the Midwest, lived through a hurricane-like storm called, I'm going to mess this up, derecho, something like that. There's a Spanish way to say it and a kind of English way to say it, but derecho, something like that, with winds that were kind of on par with the hurricane. So all of you who live in hurricane territory, God bless you, because that's some scary stuff. And I was out driving it. Thankfully, for the most part, we're okay. Some folks we know still without power and everything else. So, so if you're in the line of that storm, I hope you're all right. I hope your property's all right, but scary stuff all the way all along kind of east-west where I live here in the Midwest. So that being said, it's a great night to talk about Defo, and I am joined by not only my co-hosts, but a special guest. We'll get to him in a second. But my co-host, you know him and love him. His name is Kreese. Kreese, how are you doing tonight?
Mark, thanks for reminding me that I'm entering hurricane season where I live, so that's great to remember. But otherwise, I'm doing great. School's starting for me, so I'm getting ready for all that fun stuff. So yeah, I'm doing great.
The Ponds, says El Derecho EX when. That's what I want to know. That's the third global exclusive. El Derecho. He was great in Final Fantasy, let's say 14, because, there's like 7,000 characters in that one. Hey, we're also joined by our friend you know and love her. Her name is Aarolei. How are you doing, Aaro?
I'm doing great. I donated blood earlier today to the Red Cross.
Well, that's very noble. Hey, if you can donate blood, appreciate everyone doing that. It's a great way to give back to your community and help people in need. And we have a very special guest. You know him. You love him. He is the godfather of global Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia content creators. His name is 40. He is the Broadway Saiyan on YouTube, on Twitch, and other services I may not know, Discord. 40, it's wonderful to have you here tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm very grateful that you guys have me here. I have a feeling that Godfather joke that Jin started it's never going to leave now. It's kind of be a thing. But yeah, no, I'm very happy to be here. It's actually hot where I'm at, so if you guys hear the fan in the background, that's because I have no AC. But other than that, I'm ready to talk Defo, and I'm very blessed to be a part of this. So thank you for having me.
Yes, those of you who are listening, especially our podcast audience, you, like Aaro and myself, may know 40 from his cooking videos, but he is also a Defo content creator. No, we seriously love your cooking videos. That leg of lamb, my mouth is still watering. But it's a lot of fun. He does a lot of different things over the years. But of course, he is best known for Defo content creators, and he is a huge fan of one of the characters we're going to talk about tonight, the Professor of Mischief, Shantotto. Hey, Mino is out a little sabbatical. Hey, we're all under a lot of stress and everything else during this time, and so he's just stepped away from the podcast. He's still very active on hey, Twitch just sent me a payment. Thank you, all of you who subscribe. I don't know for how much, but I do appreciate all of your support. As I know all the content creators do, it does help. Enjoy doing what
Mino
we do.
will be looking for his check in the mail any moment now.
Well, you don't come to the podcast, you don't get your check. That's what. But yeah, we all need a breaks from time to time, and of course, Mino's been struggling with his internet and everything else, and so we miss him too. But he's still on Discord. You can give him a hard time over there, and he'll come talk to you about things, and we'll hope to have him back soon. So hey,
he'll tell you why Alisiae sucks.
Well, yeah, I don't know that you want him to talk about Alisiae tonight. He is not a fan. Let me just put it that way. As you may remember, we have some arch nemesis because he once said that Alisiae was overrated. So there's still people that have never forgiven us for that episode 50 episodes ago, or however long it was. Hey, so let's talk the news of the week. The first thing of the day is to talk about Garland TCC Challenge winners. So I'm going to throw that up on the screen. If you are listening online and not watching the video, you can go to our Twitter or our Discord or our Facebook page, and I have shared the list of winners. Remember, we banned a whole bunch of crazy characters for that. They're all up there right now. And the X-TREME challenge was a colorless team. You could only bring white and black crystal characters to enter the fight. No friend unit, and only Chocobo or Spirit. That is just a ridiculous TCC challenge. But some of you are ridiculous and you beat it. So there are all the winners for the Garland TCC challenge. Congratulations. Your work is appreciated. What you do for our community, stretching us further and further. We always appreciate it. So cheer them on. Hey, if you see somebody you're like, oh, I haven't seen them before, check them out on YouTube. That's their YouTube names right there on the screen, and watch their videos and give them a like and a sub. I'm sure they'd appreciate that. The Shantotto costume is currently now available. If you didn't get her, what do they call it? The Teacher Mystic Institute, something like that, outfit. That is the costume, not the costume that Mino wanted, as he wanted the wedding dress costume, but it is the costume that is available and has been before. So pick that up. Limited time availability. Well, let's move from Garland TCC Challenge to the Amidatelion event. That was the Yuke Cometh, I think really the second stupidest name in event names. I still, He Who Sings of Love is my number one. Who thought about that? But yes, the Yuke Cometh. We just had that event launch last week. So we did not get a chance to talk about the chaos, which we will do here in a minute, and the TCC challenge. But before we do, because 40, you weren't on with us last week, do you have, or did you have in Japan, Amidatelion, and what's your thoughts on the character, any experience or kind of yays, nays that you'd like to share while you're on the show tonight?
I think she's fantastic. Having turn deletion is not very common currently. I mean, in Japan, there's only 2 characters that could do it. But Amidatelion is the first, and she's still very strong. I think one of the things that I've learned about her is that you kind of need to build around her if you want her as an actual party member, because of the 4 debuffs that she drops. So you kind of want to play around that. But overall, she's fantastic. She also provides other things besides the damage that she does. I mean, she has gravity. She has Brave Battery or something like that, and Brave Regen. So overall, she's a fantastic character. Still very, very strong up to now. So.
Yeah, Amidatelion seems to do a lot and do it very, very well. I have personally been enjoying using Amidatelion with Garland. They seem to synergize very, very well together between Garland's delays. But in this last, I think it was, in the Heretic quest, I actually bought, Black Strife is saying, I hate frame buffs. I would love to use
debuffs.
Frame debuffs. I would love to use Amidatelion with Kistis, but I think, Kistis's non-frame buffs would get kicked off, and her speed down and turn rate down are a lot better than Amidatelyon's very low potency frame buffs. So that is a problem. Unfortunately, I don't think the 2 of them synergize quite well. But Kais, wow, I've only practiced that 1,000 times. Kais and Amidatelion also synergize really, really well together. There's nothing like setting up a launch and then being able to immediately delete enemy turns. I brought Kais and Amidatelion to the Heretics, and wow, that was a massacre. So yeah, I've certainly enjoyed using Amidatelion, and I know a lot of other people have too. So please continue to do that. Well, let's talk about the chaos. Let me just walk you through the fight if I can get my notes up here. The chaos fight was a two-way fight with the familiar Prominence, which is a bomb-type enemy, and the new Bag Slugs, which give Cater a run for her money in the bag department. They have a special ability called Mucus Charge, which applies mucus space to the field. Now, what does mucus space do? Some of you are like, well, I played this and I have no idea what this does. Yeah, mucus space delays your character one turn every action they take. Every time your character takes an action, your character is delayed. I wish one of our characters had that power. That would be super awesome. But thankfully, to their limited HP and number of delayers, deleters, paralysis characters that we have, this is not the most difficult chaos that we've had to handle. Wave 1 is 1 Prominence with 2 small Prominence, so 1 big bomb, 2 little bombs. They are weak to water and resist fire. Don't let the big bomb explode after it sizes up 3 times, and you'll probably be okay. They don't have a lot of HP, so you can kill them fairly quick. Wave 2 is 2 Bag Slugs. This is a new enemy that we've not fought before, which resist earth and are double resistant to ranged damage. One of the slugs will start by targeting itself, and that is the Mucus Charge ability. Once Mucus Space is active, you are delayed 1 turn every turn you take. That includes like free actions or instant turn rate. So if you pop your AA, you're immediately going to be turn delayed. If you're going to, go into a thing with Ultimecia, she's not going to be able to take consecutive turns, or Vayne, he's not going to be able to take consecutive turns, or Alisiae, she's not going to be able to take consecutive turns, or instant turn rate characters, they're going to have to wait in between. So that can really mess up a lot of characters. They are similar to turtle type enemies, where they can hide in their shell, gain tons of brave. They have brave reduction when they're in their shells, and then they also apply a horrible speed down and have delays. And if that passive delay wasn't enough, they have actual delays as well. Some quick tips: kill the bombs quickly, which really isn't that difficult. You can summon at the end of wave 1 to delay Mucus Space. Now, they start out with that, but they have to cast it. So if you can delay the one who's casting it, you can potentially delay that one forever and not have to worry about Mucus Space at all. Don't bring characters with a lot of consecutive free turns, as they'll be wasted. Enchant Imperil your range characters. If you want to bring range damage, bring your own delay, delete, paralysis to speed things up. I brought a full synergy team, Amidatelion, Squall, and Garland, and as you can imagine, it was fairly simple, and that's what I brought to the challenge quest as well. Reese, any thoughts about this particular fight?
I brought my usual team to it. Well, that's not true. I swapped out Garnet for Fujin, and then I said, let's just bring my usual team of Alphino, Snow, and Fujin, and that worked fine for the chaos. The delays were obnoxious, though. Oh my gosh, the delays were obnoxious. The fight was not too challenging. You definitely have to work around the fact that your characters are going to get delayed quite a bit, but you also have to prepare to shave a lot, because that brave damage reduction is nasty, and you have to be ready for it. It can be dangerous if you are not prepared for it, and if you do not slow them down enough, it can get scary. Fujin's debuff, her frame debuff, where she shaves after every target's action after she uses her EX, helped me out a lot. Her Enchant Imperil Wind helped a lot. It definitely was a big boon here. So you need to be ready for the fact that that brave damage reduction is coming and have a way to deal with it, because otherwise you're going to take a lot of damage. Those are my thoughts on the fight. It's not too dangerous if you know what's coming and you have a way to prepare. Otherwise, you can get one shot very easily.
Aaro, any thoughts on this one?
I kind of feel like you can play around with the delay mechanic in some interesting ways. Like if you have a fast character and they're going to go behind somebody, for example, who can launch, You can set up some pretty interesting launches and things. I did that in the challenge quest. I could not get a good recording of it, but I used Squall with LD, Lael, and Deuce, and that's kind of how I was able to get through it. So using, fast, high turn rate skills, or delaying enemies a little bit here, and then activating AAs there. I don't know. It's kind of a fun fight in that sense. My other teams, I ran in the regular chaos. I tried to fight it more head on. So if you're going to do that, I think poison and sap are like super invaluable. And Leon can, if you have something like that, you can absorb the attacks for the most part. So they don't get too dangerous unless you can't shave the head. So I don't know. It's a cool fight. I like the concept of it. And I'm surprised we haven't seen anything else quite like it in the game, even going forward in the JP version.
And 40, any thoughts on the bag slugs?
Interesting names. I still think it's an odd name. What I did was, for both the regular chaos and the challenge, I actually took a synergy party, but with no friend unit, because I wanted to test myself to see how I'll do. And I actually ended up taking Squall with Burst and LD. I took Lael, but my Lael wasn't even realized. And then I also took Garland, because I managed to get Garland's LD off of a multi that I did off camera. And I just applied the strategy where at the first wave, as soon as I was about to finish it, I just summoned. And then what I did was I completely abused delaying one of the bosses that was about to cast, its mucus field. And that was just my main focus. And Lael wasn't really piling on too much damage because my Lael doesn't have any boards, but he was there for synergy. And I relied on Garland's delay. And then once I got them to about like 50%, that's when I bursted with Squall, and I just completely bursted down, the one that was casting it. And then what does happen is if you take one out, the other one will cast the mucus field. But by that time, you're already at at an advantage. So the other one, the mucus field at that point wouldn't even be too much of a problem. So that's how I went about it, and that's what I did for both regular and the challenge, because I tend to do that with the regular just to see if I could actually do the challenge first. So,
and you make a good point. If you bring a friend unit and you bring a Amidatelion friend, you can pop that friend in and delete the one's turn into oblivion with 5 turns of delete. So, definitely friends help a lot. And a friend Amidatelion has come in, just like lots of friend units over the years have really come in clutch. So, hey, we also did a TCC challenge, so let me move to that before we talk about the new event here. And that was a fairly limited ban of characters. So we banned Amidatelion, Garland, Lael, and Deuce, and Squall. They were synergy. We also banned Kistis, Aphma, Garnet, Cater, who can probably solo it, Zac, Galoff, and Snow for your tankers. That was the regular TCC challenge. The X-TREME challenge is gotta go fast. You gotta bring a blue crystal character. Spiky hair is optional. And cross the finish line in 50 turns or less. Same ban list, no friend, Chocobo or Spirit Moogle, summon. And if you can believe it, sure enough, a whole list of folks beat the heck out of this one. So congratulations to everyone who was able to do that. There was somebody, let me pop it up here, who was not included. I don't know, technical difficulty on the end of the things. I just kind of cut and paste to make this. You should all know by now this is not my thing. So I do want to shout out. I apologize. I never want to leave anybody out. That's never my intention or anybody else's intention. But at 11 Navarre, whose YouTube name I don't necessarily know, that's their Twitter name, also completed the TCC challenge. So congratulations to them. I will give them a shout out for that as well. So I apologize for not getting your name in there, and just let us know if that happens, and we'll try to shout you out, because we don't want to forget anybody who did such a good job. So, let's move on from last week to maybe what we'll talk about this week, which is the new event, and of course the characters we really want to spend some time on today, the Heretic quests, the Veiled Magician. Now, it's a work and kind of a play on words because it's the Veiled Magician because we fight the enemy that casts Veil, but we also didn't know who that second burst weapon was going to be, so in a sense, that magician was also veiled. You like that play on words? I think that was Squex Joshua's idea. But of course, we all knew it was Shantotto who was going to get her LD MBT. But before we talk about the professor, we also got a new EX realization. Alisiae did have her EX, correct?
She did have her EX, but she also got a rework with her EX realization.
So let's talk about Alisiae, and Kreese is going to walk us through her rework and EX realization. Kreese, take it away.
Sure. So Alisiae did not get a substantial rework here. The big changes to her base kit and the way she works are pretty minor. The major changes are she got a lot more brave hits with her base kit.
Oh, Kreese,
There's now some nuances for how her skill 1 skills and her skill 2 skills work. Instead of them just being carbon copies and different elements, now the way they work are that her skill 1 skills, Ver Arrow and Ver Stone, have some of that white magicness to them. They have brave gains followed by brave hits. And her skill 2 skills, Ver Thunder and Ver Fire, now have HP splash damage associated with them. So there's some nuance to which ones are better for which situations. If you're in a single target environment, Ver Arrow and Ver Stone will win because she gets the brave gain. And if she's in a AoE target environment, the skill 2 ones, Ver Thunder and Ver Fire, will be better because she does the HP splash damage. So there you go. That's the nuance there. Otherwise, they haven't changed too much. Just better overflow, that sort of thing, and more brave hits, obviously. Same thing applies to her Enchanted Redoublement variants. Verholy and Verflare have the same aspects. The brave gain for Verholy and the splash damage for Verflare. Enchanted Redoublement's better. Enchanted Riposte are better. The same aspects of how she gets them are the same. Jolt 2 combo from Realization is better. So it now is 3 HP dumps. Similar to how Garland works, those HP dumps now have HP cumulative or brave gain based on HP damage dealt for each previous dump added afterwards. So she gets that bonus, and now she gets a new frame debuff applied with Jolt 2 combo, where she applies a 4-element resist down, where it's the 4 elements she actually deals. So fire, thunder, earth, and wind resist down. And those are her big changes there. The last thing that she starts with, if you fully realize her, is that she starts with Ver Stone and Ver Fire available instead of Ver Arrow and Ver Thunder, which means she can quickly get into a dual cast state. She doesn't have to waste as many ability uses getting to her dual cast. And what that means is that she can get more free ability uses faster. She has to waste fewer ability uses earlier in her combat. And those are her big changes. I'll leave my thoughts until the end and my nuances after playing with her for a couple turns. I'll say up front that I fully realized her. I got her character boards. I've been playing with her a lot the last couple days. Oh, the last thing I want to mention about her kit is that she starts with her EX fully charged at the start of the quest. That's the other big thing with her. But let me pass it over to, do we want to do 40 first? 40, do you want to talk about Alisiae before we pass it over to Aaro and Mark?
Yeah, sure. I can give some thoughts about her.
Yeah, 40, you talk about Alisiae first, and then we'll let Aaro talk, and then Mark talk. And then I'll take it at the end, and I'll give my final thoughts. I have some positives and some negatives to say about Alisiae at the end, but I want to let everyone else talk first, because I think I have the most to say about Alisiae.
For sure. So, like you said, the rework that she got was pretty minor. I think it fixed mostly her damage and also giving her a little bit more aggression. For example, with her skill 1, she can now battery herself prior to even dealing the brave hits, and she now has 5 brave hits on both variants of skill 1 and skill 2, which is helpful. and she also gets the overflow, and now she's a bit more versatile now, which I like, because you can either use her for a single target fight, or if there are multiple enemies, she could deal that splash damage. So she has very efficient ways to be able to dish out damage. I personally think the two biggest things that she got was coming from her realization. The Imperil is framed, which is actually fantastic, where she's able to drop, a quad Imperil of the elements that she uses. And being able to drop that as framed is really good, because Imperil is a really powerful mechanic, as we've seen, especially when they've made the changes to it, because it takes priority over whatever that target is resisting as far as brave damage. So I'm a big fan of Imperil. I think that's one of the biggest things that she got. And then also being able to go right into her dual cast stance helps her longevity out, because that was one of the things that I think held her back, was her longevity. So overall, she's strong in that sense. As far as weakness goes, my issue with her is because she's rotating with so many different elements, it can be somewhat difficult to bring her to fights where, this boss is weak to this, but is absorbing this, or is resistant to this. That's where I could see the character struggling a little bit. But I personally think she's going to be underrated, and because of her complexity, people might, tend to overlook her. But I think she has some pretty good potential, especially she's also very turn efficient. And I like characters that are turn efficient, because we're going to start to see some fights later on that have really tight turn counts. And if you have characters that can keep that down, that's another value that Alisiae brings. So I'm pretty happy with her overall.
Aaro, you have some things to add about Alisiae?
I am very forgetful on things like this, where you have to remember an order of events. So I like to make fun of myself on this. If I were to max Alisiae, in the Tonberry Troupe guide, they tell you just press buttons, lol, if you don't know what to do with the rotations. And that would be me with that derp chocobo emote that Jen Lee made. That's me when playing Alisiae. So personally, not for me. I think she's rewarding to those who like to micromanage a character like that. She has enough longevity. She has the turn manipulation. She has a nice Imperil. But my beef is that she doesn't enchant her elements, so it makes using the special Brave Plus and HP Plus skills. I'm sorry, I don't remember their names. It makes using them kind of awkward to me, because they're non-elemental. So it's to make up for that weakness, you need elemental enchanters if you want to do that. And I mean, that's okay, I guess, because then you're empowering another element she probably uses. I just find it kind of awkward. So for me, definitely not. Wow, that's crazy. This is 2 back-to-back characters who just aren't for me this week, or this month. So that's just about all I got to say.
Yeah, Mino's been talking about...
you mean Mino's been dumping on Alisiae in chat?
Mino's in chat. Just dumping on Alisiae. Yeah, she's I am finding her rework and EX Plus a little bit more interesting than I found her before. I had her 15 and 35 from back then, and yeah, it was just kind of a rotation character, not really great, not terrible. Couple of the issues have already come up, especially the fact that she doesn't enchant her own elements, so you have some elemental management. At least she doesn't peril them, so that's something. But there's some elemental management that you have to do, and non-elemental management that you have to do with attacks. That's kind of sad. But as we get into the chaos fight, my arch nemesis Fires, some of you may know, he was able to complete the chaos in 25 turns with Alisiae, and that always interests me. So 25 turn chaos fights are always an interest to me. So I do have her EX. It's one of the few things I walked away from after 300 tickets. I have not invested in it. I was kind of waiting to hear what everybody's going to say. But at that point, I wasn't sure if it was something I really needed. And certainly not at this point. If I end up with Shantotto's burst later on polls, I might go back and upgrade her to do the challenge quest. But yeah, I'm more interested in what Kreese has to say, as he has a lot of firsthand experience with the character, and with a character like this. I will say, if we haven't already mentioned it, Tonberry Troupe, tonberrytroupe.com. They have a wonderful infographic on Alisiae, as they have infographics on all the new characters that are coming out and a backlog of infographics. But they did a special infographic, kind of a turn rotation, turn order, how to play infographic to kind of walk you through a couple main ways to play. And so if you are interested in Alisiae, that's a wonderful infographic, and so wonderful that Squex, the City of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia Twitter account, the official Twitter account, did retweet their infographic. And so congratulations to our friends of the Tonberry Troupe, Inkwelder, Teleyut, Jeremy, and Vaynovis for that good work. But it is very beautiful, so a lot better than just walking through it on the podcast. So if you are a podcast listener and you don't ever go on the internet to do anything, this is something, if you're interested, that's actually worth taking time to go. So Chris, closing thoughts, and what are the highlights for Alisiae that you've experienced?
I have a lot more than just closing thoughts on Alisiae, so lots of things to say about Alisiae.
Yeah.
First thing, just from where I'm coming from, I spent a couple hours last night working through playing with Alisiae with a buff extension character. I was working on doing the chaos fight, the base chaos fight, with a party of Shantotto LD, Alisiae fully boarded 3/3 everything, and a 0/3 Eiko. That was the go-to I was going with. I was trying to do challenge quests and just the original EX or the chaos fight with this party to see if I could do it, to test myself. No friend unit, Leviathan summon. So I got a lot of practice of doing the buff extension Alisiae strat. And let me just make this number one thing clear. If you're worried about managing Alisiae's dual cast buff and managing her ability uses, you don't really have to follow a flowchart that much at all with a buff extension character like Eiko, because you basically stop caring once you have a basic handle on it. It basically turns into you stick with one skill, and you pick either Ver Arrow, Ver Stone, or Ver Fire, Ver Thunder, and you stick in the Jolt 2 combos whenever you want, whenever they pop up, and that's all you do. As long as your buff extension character is refreshing the dual cast whenever they can, and she runs forever. If the dual cast wears off, then you have to pop an ability use, or you can do an enchanted redoublement into a Ver Holy, Ver Flare, just for the extra damage, the big burst damage as needed, and then you go back into your cycle, and the buff extension character keeps you going. You will never run out of ability uses, at least under reasonable chaos conditions in those situations, is what I found doing this last night. Harriet's asking what the Ver is. Red mages in Final Fantasy XIV, all of their spells have Ver in. It's for the Vermilion, Red Mage, Vermilion. So Vermilion is a red color. That's the basic idea. It marks them as Red Mage spells, basically, yeah. Everyone's clarifying in chat. So that's the reason all of her spells are Ver spells. So that's the basic idea on it. This evening, I tested redoing the challenge quest with the same team, swapping Arciela for Eiko. Otherwise, the same team, Shantotto, Alisiae. It took me about the same number of turns to complete the quest. I did not switch to a conservative ability use count way of doing the fight, so I was still going for high output. I finished the fight in about the same number of turns, and Alisiae was about to burn out at the end of the fight. And I still made some mistakes in the rotation, but it's about a 65, 70 turn fight, and she was doing good damage. So that's the point I want to make. As long as the fights are not super long, she can run fine. The big issue there is you just got to watch what buttons you're pushing. Make sure you're trying to optimize your dual cast use. You're not wasting them frivolously, like you're not going into an enchanted redoublement with a dual cast up. You're trying to make sure you're getting ready to get a next dual cast as soon as possible, that sort of thing. That's the big thing you got to watch for if you're not getting a buff extension character. If you want to play her easy, bring a dual cast character. Saz is really strong. Eiko right now, she's not the strongest, but she works really well. And because Alisiae does imperil Holy, it does help make it easier. So keep that in mind. Oh wait, no, never mind. I forgot. Alisiae does not imperil Holy, never mind that. So forget that. But yeah. Probably Saz is the best buff extension character right now. So those are all the positives. Alisiae is monster damage. She has a very low turn count footprint, but she's also really fast. She only takes a turn. She takes very few turns for the number of actions she's taking. She's mostly hitting weakness damage for most of her actions, but not all of them. And that's going to be one of her cons when I get to that. So keep that in mind as I'm about to move into her cons. She hits very hard. She does a lot of HP damage. And those are some good things. So that's it for the pros. Downsides for Alisiae. She hits a lot of elements, so she's very easy to get locked out. Number 2 is that she is locked to magic damage, and because she does and because some of her abilities are non-elemental, she is locked to magic damage. If an enemy is resistant to magic, you either need to bring a party elemental and chatter, or you need to make sure you're not going into a magic resist fight because her damage will drop off hard. So be careful on that. It is a big problem for her. I had a big problem with the elemental behemoth where if I could not get its elemental resistance broken, Enchanted Redoublement or Jolt 2 combo was doing no damage until I could break it. So be careful with that. Third thing is that because Alisiae is a selfish damage dealer, she is kind of a character you have to build around. She is a character you choose to slot in number 1, and then you have to choose supports for her. As I said, if you want to bring Alisiae, usually you're going to be wanting to think about, do I want to bring a buff extender if I think this is going to be a slog of a fight? If you know you can finish this fight in about 60 to 65 turns, you don't have to worry about the buff extender. She won't burn out. If you think this is going to go to about 80 to 85 turns, you got to either think, can I get away without a buff extender? Then you're going to have to go for a slow burn Alisiae rotation, or you're going to need to bring the buff extender to keep her going. Those are my thoughts on Alisiae. She's really strong right now, and if you want to make her work, she's going to be strong. Otherwise, you're going to be careful.
Yeah, just to reference everybody, your current buff extending options are Zaz, EX Realization, all characters have EX Realizations that I'm going to mention. So Zaz, Hope, Eiko, and Yuna. Probably Zaz and Hope are the better 2 options for that. So if you bring Zaz, you might need a healer. Like Charlotta would be a good third option.
Richard Brainerd Dad, the reason that I'm mentioning the magic being negative is that Alisiae isn't just mixed damage types, she's also locked to being magic because not only does she have to get around her mixed elemental types, she also has to get around magic resist too. She has 4 elements plus being non-elemental magic, which means she has to, 1, have to make sure the boss doesn't resist magic, and 2, doesn't resist her elements, or doesn't highly resist her elements. That's her big problem. That's her issue. If the boss 1 resists magic, then she will be locked out because Jolt 2 combo and Enchanted Redoublement will not do damage. And 2, if the boss resists her elements, then she'll have it be in trouble because then she won't be doing damage with some of her spells. That's her big issue.
Yeah, and
she can't get around some of that because, again, you can stack some imperils if you stack it, or you can bring a party enchanter to get around those Enchanted Redoublement, Jolt 2 combo things. She has to work harder at it. That's her big issue. Sorry about not making that clear enough.
Yeah, and right, it is a big issue because it's not like a mixed damage type like Onion Knight. He is mixed damage type melee and magic, but he enchants all of his non-elemental attacks and empowers his elemental attacks and imperils the element that he enchants. So that's not an issue for him. she only has elemental attacks, but she also has non-elemental attacks, and she just imperils, the elements that she does. So, yeah, it is what it is. So you have to be a little creative if you want to use her. But she is no longer a meme, that's for sure, and she does dish out damage and dish it out quickly. But hey,
I will make it clear just before we move away from Alisiae.
Yeah.
I have been enjoying using her for the last 48 hours. I am not disappointed with my investment. I am happy. I am enjoying it. She does have her drawbacks, but I am very happy.
Yeah, Black Cloud Strife, Black Nero on YouTube, reminds us that Yuna sucks. And I can remind you, as someone who Yuna is one of my favorite characters and a character I use almost every day in this game as my auto farmer. I forgot that she even does buff extending. So that sounds something like that. Hey, but there is another character, and she got an LD, and she got a burst weapon number 2 in our roster, and that is Shantotto from Final Fantasy XI. So, Kreese, would you walk us through what Shantotto's LD and burst gives her? And then I know we're going to want to hear what Broadway has to say about this.
Sure. Shantotto will be a lot easier to go over because all she got was her LD and BT, so not much change in her base kit. Actually, nothing changed in her base kit. It's all the same as it was last time we spoke about her, which was on her EX realization. So hey, easy. So her LD is actually a lot simpler than it's even simpler than Squall's because it doesn't really change her base kit at all. It's a very simple AoE Brave plus HP attack. It does dark damage. It gives her 10 turns of rage, so it's a nice way to just power her up and make sure she just sits in rage for a long time. Very, very nice. It also inflicts a new debuff called Ruin's Curse. Ruin's Curse reduces defense to 0. Basically, it's 100% defense down for 1 turn, and inflicts Paralyze for 1 turn. So it's a nice, basically, safety button. You're about to get hit hard, you inflict Ruin's Curse, you do a lot of free damage for a turn, and stop the enemies from attacking for 1 turn. The other thing that Salvation Scythe does is it gives Shantotto access to a special Rage HP attack for 8 turns, which is a Brave gain followed by multiple Brave plus HP attacks. Basically just a stronger HP plus for 8 turns. Her BT attack is a little different than Squall's. Her burst attack is an AoE Brave plus single target HP attack with splash damage. The burst effect increases all elemental weakness damage by 100%, increases everyone's Brave damage limit by 20%. I think that makes it so it can go up to like 120,000 or 119,000 Brave damage now, and increases all Brave overflow by 50%. So pretty nice bonus to her. She's pretty strong. I got her LD from ticket draws. It's her LD is different from Squall's because it isn't just a nice power boost. It's basically a nice safety button that she hits. Powers her up nicely, blocks her into rage for a lot longer than she used to be able to get into it, and just keeps her there for a nice long time. So she doesn't have to really worry about rage as much as she used to. And otherwise, yeah, it's pretty simple, but what it does nicely. So 40, you take it from here. What are your thoughts on Shantotto?
She's perfect. Everyone should pity her.
Oh crap! Okay, let me go back into the banner.
I'm just kidding. So talking about her LD and her burst, I do like how the LD now gives her a safety button, not necessarily like Squall's where it powers her up more, and it keeps her longer in rage, which is where you want her to be in the first place. One of the things that I like about it too is that rage HP attack, because with Shantotto, you can find yourself spamming skills a lot prior to this, and then now with that rage HP attack, that thing actually hits really hard because she batteries herself, and then she does, a multiple it's a wind magic brave attack, which is fantastic. I actually find myself using that a lot, especially for this recent chaos and also for dimensions and 14. It actually prolonged her usage. And let's not forget that EX charges really quickly. So I find myself dropping that a lot, which helps her out because she has Omni Imperil. So it complements her entire kit. And one of the ways I actually like to use that debuff, because that debuff only lasts for 1 turn. So it is a safety button, but I actually sometimes like to apply it when Shantotto is going before her allies. If I know I'm about to burst something down, like let's say I'm about to do that and then summon, because what it does is you can take advantage of that 100% defense drop, which is, outstandingly powerful because it allows your characters to hit much harder. So I'll drop that, and then if I'm already planning on going to a summon, I'll go into the summon, and then the rest of the party just goes to town, taking advantage of that 100% defense drop. And targets are helpless because they're paralyzed. So by the time the summon ends, you've already pushed yourself forward a few more turns of advantage, which is fantastic. Now the burst in itself, I think it's cool. I actually think the design is kind of odd that it's a single target attack with splash. But it is what it is. I still think it's great. I like the burst effect simply because it complements her and other units that like to use, elemental weakness. So it complements other imperilers, things like that. I do wish it could have given more. I personally, seeing as Shantotto is this Omni Imperiler, I think it would have been nice, kind of like how Alisiae is lacking an enchant. If she could have enchanted maybe at least her 2 elements that she wields. So, coming from a completely unbiased standpoint, she's great at what she does, but you just want to be aware of how to play her and kind of build around her to really take advantage of what kind of utility she could bring to the party outside of the damage. But overall, I'm happy with her. I'm planning on taking her to as many chaos and potentially some of the early Lufenias as possible, and just to really make her work. But yeah, those are my thoughts about my girl. So everybody should pity her. So
pity's all around. Let me start.
Yeah, pity's all around.
Let me start pressing the buttons for gems. I know our friend 5D did pity both of the bursts, so there's at least somebody who's pitied both burst weapons. They're sneaky, those burst weapons. But yeah, I mean, as we can talk about underpowered, overpowered bursts. As obviously time goes on, burst weapons get a little bit more powerful, and LDs get a little bit more powerful. But a burst weapon is still an extra summon. And so you can't ever take that away from a character who has a burst weapon when only 2 characters have a burst weapon right now. And I mean, it is literally an extra summon phase and a whole bunch of extra damage. And yeah, how is that not gonna do anything? I've always liked Shantotto. I in the 1535 era, I used her a lot. Even when her EX came out, I used her in various co-ops without her EX. When her EX realization came out, I used her in various co-ops without her EX because she was still doing with synergy pretty good damage just with skill 1 and skill 2. So I've always appreciated that. I think she, like Broadway says, she just does what she does. She comes in, she hits hard. And there it is. So if you need big magic damage, she's a great big magic damage character. We're going to get another one here coming. Oh, actually, we're going to get several here coming up. But if you are low on the magic, she definitely does that. And I love how her LD really gives that 10 turns of rage. I think that's a big boon to her kit. So I wish I would have gotten something for her. But maybe we'll see. I'll keep pulling on their banners and maybe I'll pick something up. Arrow, any thoughts on the professor?
Oh gosh, LD. I only pulled for that right now, which I got into multi, so I'm going to go try for the burst with Dash banner next week. But anyway, so I like how the LD fixes my biggest issue with her before was that 6 counter rage. It's now 10 counters with the LD, and my God, that changes everything about her. Like, I like that new HP and that the LD is now an emergency button. If you get the burst, you get an extra paralysis chance to use. So that's kind of cool. And I also do like that not only does it paralyze as a framed buff, but that it is also that 20% down defense down. So there's a lot of utility smacked into this kit now. And I really like that direction for Shantotto because I think it fits her. Because originally she was like this taunting last stand kind of tanky mage. It was a weird concept, but it kind of worked in the original like iterations of her with her like level 760 release back in the day. But she's only gotten better each time she comes back with like a rework, I guess. And this iteration feels so good. Like having the poison sap combo, it is so good to stack that. And I like that there's like that's part of that's framed, and then you have the generic poison, so you can stack it with other characters such as like Sarah or Alphino or Leon's another good option. Anyone with, or even Ida if you want to go there. And I like that. I think having a utility mage like this makes her very unique. Really, the only drawback to her is that sometimes there's fights where one of her elements might be resisted, and that can be kind of hard to work around because she doesn't have any really non-elemental attacks to work with. But outside of that, when her utility works, it's very fun to play around and build around.
Yeah, well, we're talking in chat about spoilers for the MMO you most likely will never play if you haven't played it. 40 is sharing a little bit of lore. I think he did this in his chat and do. There's a wonderful video, if you don't know, go on YouTube, 40 the Broadway Saiyan. He does a wonderful analysis video for Shantotto and Alisiae and the Chaos fight we're about to talk about. But talking about apparently the Shantotto who battles is not the actual Shantotto. It's more like a decoy or a doll, kind of like he compares it to Doctor Doom. So you want to say anything else about that, 40? Because that's new to me. I don't know enough about the lore to share that.
Yeah, in her lore, from what I read, the Shantotto that fights with you, the one that fights like enemies, is a decoy. So like, if she loses, she technically doesn't lose because the decoy dies, and then she just replaces it with a new one. So who knows where what the real Shantotto is doing? It kind of is akin to Doctor Doom from Marvel because most of the Doctor Dooms that you fight are Doombots. It's kind of like Darkseid too. Yeah, there you go. Obi just said Darkseid because Darkseid uses his avatar. So I guess she's just that strong that she doesn't do the fighting herself. I don't know.
Yeah, somebody is saying Pikachu is saying Kate Sith. It's a good comparison too. He's obviously not the person controlling Kate Sith, although that's a little bit complicated. I'll have to get. I don't have my Final Fantasy archive books here. They're upstairs, so go read on Shantotto there. But very interesting in how that lore works in the weird Dissidia universe. Who knows? Who knows? But hey, we're always here to educate you. We've learned a lot of things that Alisiae's things are all verb because that means red, and like vermilion, and that Shantotto is a robot. Or a doll or a decoy. Now, this is classic. As someone who grew up playing Dungeons & Dragons and has role-played for years and loves mages and sorcerers in Dungeons & Dragons, classic mage move to have a whole bunch of decoys and like rituals on yourself so that if you die, you don't really die. So I could totally get that. It makes a lot of sense to me as someone who doesn't like to die. So who does? I don't know. Not me. Hey, other characters got some boards, training boards. Eiko, Porom, Lulu, and Krile. I have a fully realized Lulu because she's a favorite character, and I gave her training boards, and she's got all her summon boards and pretty good artifacts. And
how was it?
She's not great. So I mean, she's like so. Lulu right now, if you like fully realized upgraded Lulu, she's like Garnet, except she doesn't get free skills or instant turn rate or healing or 2 elements or battery or damage. So yeah, I mean, if you don't like all that stuff, then or attack auras. Yeah, her auras aren't great. Yeah, so looking forward to that Lulu LD, Squex, anytime. But let's not get into a conversation about who's better looking, Lulu or Garnet. I think they're both beautiful, wonderful individuals. So we're all about the inner beauty of people on the Crystal Chronicles podcast. It just got weird. Anyway, hey, you know how training boards work. If you want your characters not to suck, give them training boards. They might suck less, except if they're Lulu. Hey, podcast polls.
Hey, she does suck less.
She does. It's just not enough to make a meaningful difference. So, which of you decided that you wanted a little piece of the Shantotto action? Well, let's look. On the first banner, the one with Shantotto's EX, Eiko, and Alisiae, 16 skipping, 47 going in tickets, 3 willing to use gems, 6 pitying the LD, and 2 big burst pities on that banner. Yeah, there you go. I hope you got it without having to pity. And on the other banner, 28 skipping, 29 on tickets, 2 using gems, and 4 willing to pity the LD on that banner with Porom, Lulu, and Krile. So, hey, good luck to all of you. I hope that you were able to, as I've been looking in chat, it sounds like everybody got the LD and EX and like 10 tickets. So that's... I love all of your excitement, and I'm glad that you didn't have to use your resources, and I'm not bitter at all. I'm super not bitter. Oh, hey, we also get a chaos event with this, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Heretics, if you're not familiar with Heretics, there's 3 different stages. You have to go through different teams unless you bring synergy characters, then you can continue to use them as much as you want. If you don't bring synergy characters, it's just like Dimensions End where it locks them out until you do the other one. There is a level 80 co-op and there is a Cosmos co-op that we get not raid bonuses, but we get collaborative bonuses. So the more that we participate in the co-ops, the more global rewards we get throughout the game. You can see that on your reward bot. So we've gone through a lot of Heretics before. That's just kind of the fast and furious about that. That's not an expression, but we're going to make it one tonight. But there is a chaos and a challenge quest. So let me walk through the chaos fight called the Veiled Magician. There are 3 waves of heavily resistant foes, meaning they resist everything, making enchant and peril pretty much a necessity unless you're really going to strategically hit all the various weaknesses. Wave 1 is 2 Sand Krakens. They resist melee and range, delay you, inflict speed down, get invisible buffs. Wave 2 is those elemental behemoths. They are the ones that start blue and then change colors. They resist all damage types until they take damage that they are weak to, which to begin with is fire damage unless you enchant and peril. Then they take that. They shift colors, weaknesses, inflict speed down, turn rate down. You'll get a theme here. And of course they speed themselves up and get invisible buffs. Wave 3 is 2 magic halos, and they are the ones that give themselves veils to provide debuff evasion and actual shields. They're also melee resistant. And have various elemental resistances as well, depending on which veil is active. There's a white veil and black veil. Depending on the veil, different elemental resistances. You can read which ones they are. Just enchant and peril, it doesn't matter. Depending on the veil, that's what I already said. Like the other bosses, they can slow you down as they speed up while dealing some pretty nasty area of effect attacks. So just some basic tips before I pass it around. Enchant and peril pretty much ignores a lot of the mechanics of these fights. Without it, you need to bring a very particular set of elements, which I don't even want to think about. Tanks really help in this fight, Snow Zack in particular, especially if you enchant and peril them. Your synergy characters, even Lulu, Shantotto and Alisiae especially, bring massive damage. Delay delete works well too, as does launch, because that's what I brought. I brought Amidatelion, Kais, and Garnet with friend Amidatelion, and wow, that was 50 turns of my life that didn't need much else help. So, 40, do you have any thoughts on this? I know a lot of people are struggling with this. Any kind of approach that you took? I'm assuming you probably would have brought Shantotto.
I did. My approach was fairly straightforward. I actually went with Shantotto, and then I took Rydia, because she has water enchant, water imperil, and she hits really hard. Not to mention her HP attack, was it ++, where she actually hits you with her whip. Actually hits pretty hard too. And then I took Garnet. So my approach was pretty straightforward. I think I think for me the hardest wave was wave 2. Because by the time I got to wave 3, I was playing fairly conservative. I was saving all of Shantotto's LD abilities specifically for wave 3, because I wanted to take advantage of dropping that, going into the summon, taking advantage of the defense drop, and then kind of just repeating the process over again when the paralysis would wear off, apply it again, take advantage of it. The friend unit I took for the regular was Amidatelion, just because I just wanted to get it over with. And then when I bursted, I just took one of them down. Pretty much they never really got a chance to use their veils. So it's a pretty straightforward fight. Just if you have Enchant and Peril, it really solves a lot of your problems. Because it kind of bypasses all the resistances. And pretty much, you just score the home run from there. So yeah, it's definitely, I think depending on the resources that you have with your account, it's probably the easiest chaos challenge that I personally think from the 3 that we've seen so far, with burst coming in. But that's from my personal perspective.
Yeah, less easy if you don't have any of the characters. But for the challenges, which we'll talk about in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you just had one, like if you just had the elemental behemoths, then you could kind of go in with and I've done this before with the elemental behemoths, go in with several different elemental characters and not use enchant and peril. But you have 3 different sets of enemies, all with different weaknesses, all with different gimmicks. And so really, I haven't looked through the call to arms. Remember, if you're struggling, DecidiaInfo.com, Macno Call to Arms, a great resource for both challenge quests and regular chaos and, of course, TCC challenge, all right there in the Call to Arms. We thank our friend Macno for that and doing all that work. But I don't know that I've seen anyone not do Enchant and Peril because there's just a lot of management, elemental management to make that happen. So, Aaro, did you have any?
There's a couple of teams without Enchant and Peril, but they are few and far between right now.
So, Kreese, thoughts on this one?
I think I mentioned it when we were discussing Alisiae, but I have only run this with a couple of teams, and all those teams have involved Shantotto and Alisiae, because I've really been trying to work Alisiae into the ground to figure her out. Because of that, the hardest wave for me has actually been the Kraken wave, because I have been running kill the Krakens before the Krakens kill me, and just accepting I will take breaks, and the breaks will and the Krakens will get at least 1 HP attack off. Because of that, the strategy has been kill at least 1 Kraken and hope the Kraken that gets the HP attack off, that HP attack will not kill a character. So I think on my challenge quest, the Kraken that got the HP attack off actually targeted Shantotto, broke her, but because Shantotto has lost stand, she survived. On my Chaos complete, I think I predicted correctly when the HP attack was coming, and the HP attack was on Eiko, and Eiko brave attack before that, so Eiko was able to take it and didn't get killed. So that wave was the worst for me. And then I just saved Shantotto's LDs for the final wave, summon for the final wave. So that wave never got a chance to really do anything. And the second wave, I just made sure the elemental behemoths never really get a chance to really phase too much. So those got beat up pretty hard. That was my opinion of my strategy using Alisiae and Shantotto, primarily with Eiko as the third party member.
Aaro, any thoughts on this fight, regular or challenge quest?
I'll go with challenge quest first and then talk about the regular chaos. In the challenge quest, I used Shantotto, Porom, and Krile, who are all purple. I haven't had Krile purple from like when she was released, so it was like, that's obvious. Which my third would be the third. I character boarded Porom as well. And basically, it was probably the easiest of the challenge quests we have. I mean, Porom just kind of ignores any of the HP attacks. Yeah, they'll hurt, but she's just going to heal them anyway, like the next turn over. So, yeah, I think it was easy. I saved 2 of my salvation sides for the final wave because I wanted to get through the behemoth wave a little faster. So I used one there. And yeah, easiest challenge quest if you've got 2 purples and probably either for your third being Eiko or Porom. So
I have not budget. I have not seen any challenge quest runs without either Eiko or Porom.
Right. You're going to need one of them, but they are budget friendly. So you could probably get through it with 0.3 versions of each on their EXs, for example.
Unless you can go with a 35 only Eiko, I'm not going into this challenge quest yet. And I hate Porom, so I think we've all made that clear. I hate those twins with a passion, even though 4 is one of my favorite games.
That is a shame. I love both of them in this game.
They are my least favorite characters in Final Fantasy. So
wow, ouch. Favorite Final Fantasy with least favorite characters.
They are one of my favorite. That is one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, but they are, I like Edward more than I like them. Let's just put it that way.
And then for the regular chaos, I finally sat down and tried to run a team that could get through it. I did use Lion, Fusion, and Freya to get through it with a Cloud of Darkness friend with Shiva Summon, because on the final wave, I didn't have any way to really delay them too long from getting the first veil, which is the white veil, and wind attacks do absolutely nothing against that veil. So I brought Shiva Summon to deal with that. So I let them actually get off the first veil. And then I summoned my Cloud of Darkness friend and just delayed spammed them with a ton of damage from skill 2. And after that, Lion came back. And then I just decimated the enemy pretty quickly after that. It didn't matter that they got the black veil up because I can deal with that one. So, yeah, it took about the same amount of turns as when I used the synergy team. The same one I used for the challenge quest. So it's not too bad. But you will have to, if you're going to run non-synergy, you will have to think which veil will give you more problems, and if you don't have a lot of delay or you're not bringing Ami to delete the turns or something, then you might want to build around that using a summon that can help you with the veil that would give you problems. Otherwise, it's pretty standard fare. You can probably run pretty standard characters as long as they have enough damage on them to get through the 110 turns. That's the max you can have for that stage. Nothing else really to say. I think I ran one of the most basic teams I've ran in a long time using the 3 I did.
Very good. Well, good luck. Again, if you're struggling, there is the DecidiaInfo.com call to arms. You can see all the videos that have been submitted. There's not, to my knowledge, I just looked again, but we don't have an official TCC Challenge or TCC Challenge Extreme yet.
We're still working on it.
You can imagine the synergy characters will be banned. You can imagine probably some, we might limit Enchant Imperil. We might limit a tank or 2. So, start playing with some ideas outside of the box. And good luck to all of you. We'll get that posted.
I'll give away 1 ban. How about that?
Please.
Amidatilion's getting banned.
Yeah. Amidatelion is banned from the TCC Challenge. So no runs with that. And likely the extreme, you cannot use a friend anyway.
That includes friend too. Don't expect friend Amidatelions getting through.
Yes,
guys.
Remember at this point, all regular units we are banning are also banned as friend. Aarolei might get through though. So hey, all you Aarolei lovers, feel free to bring Aarolei.
Well, just remember all the bosses highly resist melee and range, so you're gonna have to figure out how to make that work.
And we're only gonna give you like Ragin maybe to enchant in peril. So I was gonna say Lulu, but she's synergy, so we gotta ban her. We should just not ban her, just for spiritually. Yeah, her EX is nice though, but that's something. All right, well, we also got another chaos fight. If 2 chaos fights wasn't fun enough, let's talk about 3, and that is Dimensions End Entropy Tier 14. Wow. We're already up to Tier 14. It seems like only yesterday we were stressing out about Dimensions End Entropy 1. But, hey, there's a few more tiers, actually 6 after this. So Let's talk about Tier 14. Again, we have wonderful friends at the Tonberry Troupe who have a beautiful infographic about Tier 14. We also have our friend Black Nero on YouTube who does a wonderful walkthrough of Tier 14. And all of our friends who do great runs of that are available on YouTube as well. So let's just quickly walk through the fight. It is a 3-wave chaos fight where all enemies resist ranged damage. They have high defense and high speed and lots of AoE HP attacks. Wave 1 is a guard scorpion from Final Fantasy VII and an eagle gun. The eagle gun can shield itself, and the guard scorpion puts up its tail at about 80% of its health and gets faster and a lot more dangerous. There's a lot of AoE coming at you from this wave. Wave 2 is one Guardian, an enemy that changes programs or stances depending on its health. It moves from Kraken stance to Marlboro stance to Ultimate Weapon stance or Ultima Weapon stance. The Kraken program is weak to thunder and does high turn rate attacks. The Marlboro has bad breath and fire weakness. Ultima Weapon is a high turn rate, especially on breaks, so don't get broken. Wave 3 is our old friend, the CPU, with its attack and defense nodes. Defense node supports, attack node attacks. CPU has that deadly recast ability that will end you if you let it break you. So just some general tips. Wave 1, kill the guard scorpion first, because when it gets almost dead, it gets crazy fast and just spams attacks. But do watch out for the eagle gun's all or AoE attacks. Wave 2, try and avoid the bad breath by going hard when it gets in its Marlboro status. Now, if you let it live in the Ultima Weapon status, it will switch back to Marlboro, so be careful there. Wave 3, kill the defense node first. Kill the defense node first. Everybody at home, kill the defense node first. Then kill the CPU, then the attack node. We've gone through why for pretty much every time we fought the thing, so just remember, defense node first, CPU second, delay or attack node third. There's probably a little jingle we could write on that. Ryan is the bomb 203. Let's get working on that. A little musical rendition about how you kill the CPU. Delay delete helps here a lot. Yeah, if you bring your LDBT, that can give you an extra edge as you get an extra summon, and you can beat this, though, without any LDs. You don't need LD weapons or burst weapons to beat this tier. I did bring an LD weapon, but I didn't bring my burst. I saved Squall for a rainy day because I really have been enjoying using Garland and Kistis. So I brought Garland, Kistis, and Aphmau and destroyed this fairly. And I'm really, like I said, enjoying Kistis and Garland working together. They are a lot of fun. So, hey, 40, have you had a chance to tackle Dimensions and Entropy Tier 14? Probably in Japan you have, but in Global too.
I did, actually. I took Aphmau, Cloud of Darkness, who was actually the MVP for me, and then I took Shantotto just because I had to. I really wanted to use her. Wave 1, like you said, take out the Guard Scorpion because it gets crazy fast. I had to keep the Eagle Gun in check, especially when it was targeting all. So I ended up having to use one Salvation Scythe there because I didn't want to get hit with that little flamethrower HP attack move and then afterwards get hit with the tail laser because that would have been disastrous. Wave 2 was the trickiest one because, and I'm glad that I brought Aphmau because that bad breath can really, really mess you up, especially if it applies blind for 3 turns on any of your party members, which could really mess things up. So that one I had to actually get a little bit more aggressive, and I ended up having one Salvation Scythe left. Almost all of my rage arrows were gone. I was using that in combination with a rage HP attack. And as soon as I got to wave 3, what I did, my strategy for that is apply the last Salvation Scythe, summon, and then I actually went in to just spamming S2 with Cloud of Darkness because you know how it's AoE when she doesn't have 5 stacks of her her icon. I can't remember the name right now. And I focus fired the defense node, and then as soon as that was done, I let the paralysis wear off, rent white into burst, and then just bursted down the middle node, and that was my strategy for that one. But for me, Cloud of Darkness was the MVP, especially for that last wave because of her AoE, her mass delay in her AoE, and also her fairly fast charging EX also having that delay. So
very nice. Arrow, have you tackled the Dimensions End 14?
Yes, I also used Shantotto, and then I added in Pinello and Kistis, which worked out. I tried a bunch of other teams, but they weren't quite working out. I kept dying to the charge attack from the CPU node in the final wave. And so I decided this tier really likes turn manipulation a lot. So I was going to turn manipulate what the bosses were doing to me. So I saved all three of my salvation sides in the final wave. But essentially, I had to use one of Kistis's degenerator whips into wave 2, so I did not get hit with bad breath because I did not want to waste skills from Pinello to basically wipe the debuffs off, which actually worked out really well because I wound up getting a lot of extra turns over the boss, oddly enough, through the high turn rate skills of my characters, and so I didn't have to worry about it. And I tried to make sure that boss and the final wave did not get a turn because I did not want to deal with those brave attacks potentially breaking anyone, because if it breaks you, it's going to kill you pretty much. So I decided not to even let him get there. So that's pretty much all I can suggest, is try to delay that boss and never let him get the red charge skill off. And I managed it at 99 turns out of 105.
Arrow, I just feel like you have used Pinello on like half of the Dimensions End Entropy tiers. Is she synergy in Dimensions End? How did you manage that?
I've not used Pinello until now, actually. I've used other characters more and had to free Toto from tier 10 a while back because I knew I was going to pull for the LD.
It's funny that you say that because I have to look now. Because I'm not sure that I've used Pinello either on Dimensions.
My Pinello's still unlocked in Dimensions End.
She's very good for this tier if you still have her, guys. So, like, I don't know how much higher she's going to be going, honestly.
When did Pinello come out? I got to go back a few.
I don't know if
I finally used her in tier 13. So okay. I just used her in tier 13. So that is that.
That's a pretty good tier to use her on. Hey, that's a pretty tough tier.
Pinello's still pulling her weight all these tiers later. She's been out for months. So congratulations to Pinello. You keep dancing, girl. Kreese.
I did a blind attempt at this right before the podcast started. I tried the exact same team I tried to do the challenge quest with, Eiko, Alisiae, and Shantotto, and I could not get past wave 1. It was a 0-3 Eiko, and let's just say, as soon as the Guard Scorpion started spamming its AoE skills, I started dying very fast, so I think I'm gonna have to bring Pinello to replace Eiko. I'll probably try that tomorrow once I get off work, and we'll see how that goes.
That is probably a better idea, yes, than 0 out of 3 Eiko. A 3-3 Pinello would probably work real well. Well, hey.
Probably.
Good luck to all of you. Remember, there is, not the same kind of rush that there was for Dimensions End, so you can give yourself time. There's some new characters coming out. Ultimisha's getting an LD. Dash is coming out, new character. And then we're going to have the next burst weapon here in a couple weeks, which is Vaughn, or so I've been told. Because I am a flagrant data miner. So no, I mean, we just know what the order is, of course, from Japan. So unless they change it, it's gonna be Vaughn. Hey, Kreese, I think we have some time for a host discussion. And since we have 40 here, maybe he'd be kind enough to answer some questions from the audience with us. So do you have some questions that might be interesting for the group of us to talk tonight?
Sure. I'm sifting through some questions. I'm trying to look back and answer some of the ones we've sat on for a while.
Yeah.
So this one's a little old, and it's probably worth addressing because we're now, kind of a little ways into the LDBT era. So let's talk about it. During the LD Q&A, this is from Green Marmadello, sorry. All 4 participants endorsed at least tickets for every new BT 2-week synergy banner. Does this change if you plan to pity an LC or new character LD weapon? and fear having to mix gems with tickets by going back to the chase the featured LD after you got a lucky BT pull on the later banner? Should you wait to pull in the 2-week banner until after you know if you got the BT from the later banner? So Green Armadillo, I think it's more clear now, but the basic idea is for the 2-week synergy characters, their LD weapon is their stronger, more powerful weapon if you plan to use the 2-week synergy character for the challenge quest for that 2-week period. So, for example, for me, I use Squall LD to get through the raid the raid challenge quest and the Garland challenge quest. I didn't have the characters to get through Amidatelion challenge quest because all I had was Squall. So that's my answer to that. Anyone else need to chime in or want to chime in with that?
Yeah, I want to get 40's take on maybe challenge quests in general and maybe his approach here in global, having lived through it in the Japanese version of the game too. But before I hand it off to him, we were having some conversation about challenge quests and pulling on these burst characters, these main 2-week synergy characters. And Mino was actually saying, his plan is really to pity all of the LDs of those characters, not just throw tickets at them. I threw 300 tickets, obviously didn't end up with the LD. What do? You move on with your life, but now I'm here 2 weeks without a good synergy character and don't necessarily have the other pieces to figure it out. I do for a couple of the events, but certainly not for this event. So it does kind of throw you off. So, I mean, if you have the resources and you're really big on completing challenge quests, throwing an LD pity for every, now you won't have to pity every single one, but throwing a gem on every single LDBT character, the 2-week synergy character, so Squall, Toto, Von, Kefka, etc., it's probably not a bad idea, but again, you have to have the resources to do that. For me personally, I'm trying to take the challenge quests as kind of a bonus material. Now, like I said, Mino Spelgud from the Tonberry Troupe, I think our friend Jin Lee, maybe Strafe, our friend, there's a couple others, Black Cloud, are definitely trying to clear all of the challenge quests. And several of them have planned it out so that they had pulled or are pulling to make that happen. So, I mean, if that's your plan, pull to get all the challenge quests, fine. There's nothing wrong with that. For them, that's endgame content. For them, that's what they're moving towards. For me, endgame content right now is Dimensions and Entropy. That's going to be kind of what I definitely have to complete. Chaos isn't really an issue right now. And the challenge quests are kind of bonus if I can do them. If I have the tools in my toolbox to take them on, fine. If I don't, I'm going to get over it. So, 40, what's kind of your take on that, or what's your plan going into this era in global?
So I might be a bad example for this if we're talking my JP account because I go for everything, but I have a reason for that. But my general approach is like for Squall, for example, my goal was the LD. I got the LD, and because I had planned on pulling for Garland because I was interested in his kit, because he was actually somebody that I did not use too much on JP. I told myself if I was going to get the burst there, that would be fine. Ended up getting the Garland LD, and I also had plans on pulling for Amidatelion. So I think for me, it depends on what my plans are for the banners coming after the first 2 initial weeks. Now, this could be very different for everyone else. It depends on what your account looks like, how much endgame content means to you, and also just how much value to put on those BT tokens. And I'm with you on this too, Mark, about the BT tokens. I see it more as a bonus. If I can't do it, it's not the end of the world for me because they will be coming every single time we see something new, whether it's a new Heretic event, whether it's a new raid event, new lost chapters. We're always going to see it. So there's always another chance, to get another one. And it's just one token, So it's something that I guess newer players don't really have to necessarily stress too much about because, again, if you're trying to stay free to play on this game, you have very limited resources. And while the rates have been adjusted, RNG is still RNG. You could pull 300 tickets and not get anything. So you have to take that into consideration. But my general thing is that if I want to go after the next 2 banners right after an initial burst released, I go for the LD on the 2-week banners, and then afterwards I just go as much as I can, realistically possible on the next 2 banners if I'm planning to pull on for those. But if I'm not, then I usually go for the initial release. Like, for example, for Shantotto, I wanted to get her full gear regardless on her initial release because I had no desire to pull on Ultimisia or Desh in my case. Because, for example, for Desh, I have somebody named Raijin who I think is very similar to him, kind of does similar things to what he does. So I don't need another character that does that. And then for Ultimisia, I plan on waiting. So that's how I approach it.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. That's what I'm going to do here. I spent 300 tickets on the Toto banner, didn't get her LD or burst, but I'm going to spend tickets on Ultimisia too. I'll probably spend gems when she comes back with her burst if I don't get her LD, but so maybe I get her burst on that. And depending on where my ticket luck is at then, because I got tons of tickets, I'm probably going to throw some tickets at Dash just to see what happens. And the same with the Von banners. May throw some gems on there because I'm going to be using, or tickets there because I'm going to be using gems on Noctis and Arden back to back. So, and Warrior of Light, and Kuja, and Sephiroth, and Cloud.
Yeah, Noctis and Arden, I wish they weren't so close.
And that's what I was talking to the group about. It's not that I'm saving gems for some, Lufania area. I just have a lot of pities coming up. and given my luck, I need to make sure that I have the thing for pities. And I'm going to probably pity Paladin Cecil's burst because he is one of my favorite characters as well. So yeah, Aaro, we haven't heard from you. Any thoughts on your approach now going into this?
As many challenge quests as possible. I've actually done them all. I didn't really talk about that, but I forget where, but I somehow ticketed Squall's burst. So I actually went back and somehow did Garland's LC with like a book to Sephiroth. I don't recommend, but it did work. So whatever. That's the thing I kind of don't like is that I'm going to have to like minorly build some of these villains just to get through CQs if I want to do it. And I don't know if I'm going to wind up doing that with all of them, but I do like the challenge quest a lot. So part of me is like, try to pull and do as many of them as you can. And part of me is like, but your stash, it will die so fast. And then part of me is like, but you enjoy the game in the moment. So I'm like conflicted. I like them. I think they're a cool concept. I wish they kind of catered better to, I don't know. It's hard to say because like it feels like a carbon copy of the Chaos fight in a lot of ways. And I don't know if that's ideal, but I do like the concept of running lots of different teams for challenge quests. And I like making even, quote unquote bad teams kind of make it through. Because I mean, you do have synergy stats, so that kind of gives you a big bonus. So I want to do as many as I can because I simply enjoy them. The burst token is just a bonus.
All right. Hey, Kreese, is there another question?
There are a couple other questions I want to cover. This is kind of bouncing off the last question a little bit, but it's a different type of question. Baron asks, if you get a protagonist's full kit LDBT on their banner, does that make you want to change your plans for upcoming LDs with the same BT? So does it make you want to change your plans from gems to tickets, for example? So I'll answer my comments. I am not changing my plans going forward. I obviously have 0 bursts, so this doesn't apply specifically to me. But I was planning to pity Dash regardless on how lucky I got on Shantotto's banner. I got Shantotto's LD. I'm still planning to pity Dash. If I'd gotten Shantotto's burst, I was still planning to pity Dash, for example.
Yeah, 40, any thoughts on would that change your plans if you got the full kit and there was another banner that you were planning on?
For me, probably not. Yeah, no, for me, it's not really going to shift my plans too much. Well, actually, no, wait, it does if it depends on just how much, just how many resources went into, pulling the initial BT and LD. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it, of course, depends on the banner, but I mean, if I pull on Renoa's banner and get Arden's burst, I mean, for that one, I'm gonna definitely go back and get his. I'm pulling gems on both those banners anyway, so it won't change that. I'm not gonna throw tickets all of a sudden on it, just because I got his burst early. Hey, because if you get extra bursts, you can sell them for burst tokens. That's the nice thing about that. So, Arrow, any thoughts on that?
So the question is, if I get the full kit early, is that going to deter me from pulling from another character's banner?
Yeah, like the same burst. So the same 3 or 4 banners that might have the burst on it.
No, because if I want one of the characters on a future banner, I want that character. If I get more bursts, I can hoard them, or to sell for tokens later, or I can sell them for tokens right away. Yeah, it doesn't do anything for me, because if I want to play something, I want to play something.
Yeah. All right, Kreese, there another question to answer?
We want to cover one last question.
Yeah, that'd be great.
This will be a little bit of a doozy, but it's from Inkwelder.
Oh.
Everyone talks about having a balanced roster. What are the co-hosts' thoughts on figuring this out? How deep should the roster be ideally, and how recent should your roster roles have been filled? As I said, this is a doozy of a question. So I'll start with this. So for me, a balanced roster means looking at what holes you have in your roster. Do you have recent damage dealers? Do you have recent support units? Do you have recent aura units? Do you have recent healers? Do you have recent units that fill niche roles? Things that you've noticed that you're lacking lately? Do you have recent units that fill debuffing roles, buffing roles? Anything that you've noticed recently that you seem to be lacking? And it's kind of hard to know what that means in a specific thing. So it's kind of a more inflexible thing. So you have to think, it's not a thing that you just say, this is what you need, this is what you don't need. And so yeah. It's something that you have to kind of feel out over time, and I don't think it's anything you can do specifically. So it's something you got to think out and look at. That's what I'll leave it at for now.
Yeah.
What do you think, 40?
Ooh, this is a hard question to answer. I'm leaning on what you said, Kreese. You take a look at what you have, and you want to see where you are current wise, and if there's anybody that could potentially fill that role that may be a little older and not nearly as effective, but can still fit the role. Is how I would approach it. I do also want to mention one thing, is that I know there's the whole. Hopefully, this pertains to this discussion, but I know there's the whole back then where supports were more important. I also said that. I know several others have said that, but I do start to notice moving forward that the role of support and DPS, it actually balances itself out, where both actually become very important, especially spoiler alert, going into the Lufenia era, those roles actually become balanced out. So I think having like a nice balance of current characters and then like some of the more older ones, because some of the older characters will get those reworks. For example, one that gets a really phenomenal, exceptional rework and also realization is Realm, who we're going to see later on, and she's just an EX plus. I think having that kind of a balance, and also understanding that support and DPS eventually starts to equal themselves out is how I would approach that. I hope I answered that. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Kind of thinking about it myself, I think in the EX era, especially EX realization era, I was much more worried about, okay, is my roster diverse? Do I have all the roles covered? Moving into this era, I'm much more interested in getting characters I want to play, characters I like, favorites. I'm going for all my favorites LDs, and so I mean I'll build around those. If there are characters that work well with characters I like, then I'll probably get them. Or they're characters that are really good, I'll probably go for them too. But I'm not keeping track of how many supports do I have, how many tanks do I have, all that kind of stuff. I'm really just more interested in collecting the characters I really like, because that's what makes the game fun for me, is investing in the characters I really like. So, Aarol, what do you think about all that?
I'm sorry. What was the question?
How to balance the diversity of your roles, character roles, and your bench, and how important is that to you, and how much do you focus on that?
I first pull for favorites. It doesn't matter if I need the role or not. If they're a favorite, the end, that they're getting pulled. But then after that, I just try to complement my favorites. So, pull characters that will help them get through more content, so that they wouldn't otherwise get through. And then thirdly, if it's a character I don't really have any attachment to, but I think they'd still be useful, I will pull for them. So generally, the most important roles for me are good utility, and then decent damage, because I rarely pull for new damage dealers. So when I finally decide I'm going to pick up a new damage dealer, I look and see what's coming and decide on one from there that would fit my playstyle well. I tend to not care too much about tanks. I have played them. I do like Zac and Celis, but I don't know. It's just not a role I often think about. I'd rather have other ways to deal with damage than just an outright character who eats up all the attacks for me. So that might be a role I'm less invested in. Let's see what any other roles I'm less invested in. Oh, I only recently started getting units with paralysis and stuff like Shantotto, and I am planning to pull for Dash. So I'm trying to figure out what little weak spots I do have in my roster that I have noticed would be very useful to have, because I do have some blind spots. But I haven't really looked too hard recently. So I do check about every month or so, but I already knew what I was going to pull this month, so I wasn't too worried about looking into it.
Chris, is there any other burning questions for tonight?
I think we can leave it there for tonight. I think we're good for now.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. Looking ahead, we have Ultimicia's LC Governess of Time with her LD weapon on the 16th. Desh's event, a new character, Ancient Memories, on the 20th, and the next Squex community stream will be the Monday after, before the release of the next wave of content, including Act 2, Chapter 10. 40, thank you for joining us. Can you let the people know, how do we check you out? Is there anything you want to talk about, hype up, share? So thank you, and hype yourself up, and let us know how to get connected to you.
Well, you guys can find me on YouTube and on Twitch. I'm mainly there, and as well as Twitter and Discord. I just want to say, this community, hands down, is the best community that I've been a part of. Everyone is just so helpful. We all share knowledge and are just here to, educate people and help people just get better at the game. With a game that has all these characters that we love from, throughout the years. So, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everybody. Thank you to you guys doing this weekly podcast, taking the time out of your days just to provide knowledge to everybody. So, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you for coming on. I'm glad we could make it work. As all of you who are listening probably know, 40 has been doing content for Global since the release of the game, and is probably the longest running and consistent running content creator in our community. And so he has supported a lot of other content creators who have come and go and who are still here. And so we thank you for all of your support and all the things you've done for our community. And so,
Yeah, thank you, 40. You've been here since the beginning, and we really appreciate what you've done.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. It's because of you guys that I'm still here. You guys are all great people, and I really love what you guys do. So
it is. I've been involved in a lot of different gaming communities, and certainly really do appreciate the community here quite a bit. So, Aero is also on YouTube.
Definitely not as big.
How do we find? Well, we could change that. So how do we find you?
I'm Lily on YouTube, which is spelled Leilee. Now I am still working on. I'm having difficulties trying to figure out this capture card business. I have the setup upstairs, but I don't know. I'm just having problems. I'm not the most technically inclined, and I use my husband for that because he is the IT guy. So he's been busy lately. So yeah, I hope to start some new kinds of content where I do actually talk about the game while I play it, because I think it would be pretty cool if people would better understand why I pick some of the weird team picks I have for all this content.
All right. Hey, well, thank you to our crew, the TCC crew, Kreese, myself, and Mino. Thank you to Arrow, Inkwelder, J.A, Jin Lee, Macnol, Quetz, and Strafe, our mod team. Thank you to Dreamy, who did our intro video, Jin Lee, who does our backgrounds and emotes, Hey13, who does our intro narration, Ryan is the Bomb 203 for the intro music, our collaborators, Black Cloud, Black Nero on YouTube, Shara, who's main core Reddit admin, and Ricky Shu Wu, who has been our TCC challenge helper. Of course, the entire Tonberry Troupe, Inkwelder, Dreamy, Teliute, Vane Novus, and all of the other content creators. I saw Munchkins on. I think Chris is doing a stream too as well. His second anniversary stream as well. I know Josepher, Zeno. There's a lot of other great, I'm forgetting people. And of course, 4-Day the Broadway Saiyan. And thanks to Pierre up here. And I started this podcast 114 episodes ago, and he's doing well. And so check in with him occasionally. So, hey, that has been episode 114 of the Crystal Chronicles. If you want to know more about us, tccpodcast.com or at FFTCC Podcast on Twitter. Join our Discord. All the links are there on our YouTube and Twitch as well. Hopefully, if you're still pulling, your pulls go well. If you're still struggling with the Challenge Quest or Dimensions End Tier 14, jump on. We'll help you out. Until next week, episode 115, Ultimecia is back. This has been the Crystal Chronicles. Good luck. Goodbye.